Yes, yes, please go ahead. Anyone?
We have studied about four quadrants: data, information, knowledge, and wisdom.
That's it.
We discussed in detail actually.
So what are the
Sir,
things
good
we?
morning, sir.
Yes.
Sir, actually, we discussed about the data and information in the first lecture and DIKW model
Right.
and about data, information, knowledge, and wisdom
Right.
and how we how metadata, like what is metadata, our likes or shares on the face social networking sites
Right.
that we discussed about and about the information processing, like how we process the data
Right.
and what is the search process. In the last lecture we discussed about the search process.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. So I need more inputs. So maybe I need to call a name. Akanksha, can you tell him something? Akanksha. Okay. Amit, what is your take? What is your addition? Amit Kumar. So what you wanted to add? Okay, so I'm going to take one or two names. Dipanshu, can you add something? Dipanshu Tyagi. Yes, Dipanshu, say something. Okay, so he's not connected for audio at least, right? So Dipanshu is noted down. Then I wanted to raise to Harshal Ashok.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, perfectly. Go ahead. So you want to add something?
So we have learned about what do we search and how do we search. Then we also know about the lookup search and exploratory search. Then we learned about how actually the search process works in information retrieval system.
Right.
And then we also knew about DIKW model and how actually information retrieval system actually we use in our day-to-day life.
Right.
Just like web searches or something else.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Arjun, can you add something? Arjun, okay, already left. So Jatin, I wanted to call Jatin. Jatin, anything
Yes,
else
sir.
we missed?
No, sir. In my opinion, no.
Okay, yes and no, sir. That's it. Okay, thank you. So now, actually, the purpose of this thing is to, because in the last week we have started this course called Information Retrieval and Web Search. So we have started by discussing discussing the fundamental concepts. So, I mean, if you are a student of computer science background or domain, what could be the best thing to have discussion on the data term? So we have started from that concept called data and how this data could be processed, and we can process a data to generate metadata, or maybe we can process data and collect metadata to make information. Right. So when you have data, you can generate anything. You can generate information. You can generate knowledge. Right. So to go for knowledge, you need to process first data to information, then add something in the information to make it as in knowledge. Right. So precisely in the existing world, actually, you can say most of the systems are basically uh, working on these aspects, where they are trying to generate some knowledge, some information, and they are having some kind of learning into it. Right. This subject, information retrieval and web search, is planned to have discussion on the retrieval process, how retrieval is happening on each aspect. Whenever you are trying to derive information from data, whenever we are trying to derive knowledge from information, uh, we need to work upon some kind of retrieval, right? Retrieval, or maybe extraction, or maybe processing. You can have any name, but our focus is in the very first layer where we are having data and then generating information. So once you generated the information, how you can extract this information for user query or for user request, right? So that was the focus. So after that, we have taken this very first impression about the search process, how any search process is happening, right? So it is not necessary that we have taken this discussion with respect to information search or search engine or search system. We have taken a very first impression. It means we are basically captured the very first understanding about the search process, that any search process could be of this nature. Any search process could have these possible entities: user, information search system, and this entire world or entire space where this search user is existing, right? So we have taken that conception, and the purpose of that conception is to understand that whenever we are engaging, whenever we are starting, whenever we are conducting a search process, search activity, we as a user are having our impression of information, and then based on looking at some information, we are revising that impression. So this revision, this evolution in thought, this evolution in knowledge, this manipulation or updation in knowledge is basically having a very important role, right? So naturally, our current system, current generation information system is not able to capture that transformation happening in the user's mind, but they are having some mechanism to capture this change of information, change of knowledge at user cognitive side, right? So we are not talking, we will be not talking this part, we will not discussing this part, because most of the modern information systems are not able to capture this change of knowledge at user side, right? So they are able to capture some mechanical behavior of user, and assuming that okay, this is possibly the change of user's thought, right? Like in case of Google search system, we are having a simple GUI. There we are applying our keyword, and based on keyword, system is extracting some set of documents, and after observing some results, some results, we are doing some activity on the GUI itself, right? So your behavior, this behavior also system is capturing and assuming that this is what you are thinking during the second phase of search, because in the previous lecture we have taken this impression that a simple user search or simple search is having three possible phases, you can say. The first phase is when you have started your search. So when you are going to the search system and applying your very first search, that is one state, that is one context, you can say broadly. Second context is after that point onwards. So once you receive the first set of result in the Google search, or maybe in the Flipkart, or maybe in the Amazon, maybe on any search system. So when you receive the first set of result, the second phase, the second point of search has been started, because you have your question or query with your mind, and you have some results for this particular question in front of you or in GUI. So now you have started relating these results with your query. So we have started the second phase, right? So very first phase, where we are only have some planning, some keywords with us to start the search. This very first search context is called, you can refer as a it's a pre-search context, because search has not been started, right? So this very first phase or first slot or first portion of search is called a pre-search context, or you can refer this space or this context space as a pre-search, right? After getting the first set of result, you can claim that now my search has been begun, and I have some set of results with me for my initial query, and now I can revise or review these set of results, and I can if particular result or document is relevant or interesting, I can open it, I can access it, and I can read it. And based on these possible activity during these results or on these results, we can revise our knowledge state, we can update our search interest, we can update our search queries, something like that, which are now available in our mind. CW part, right? If you can recall CW part. So based on this updated CW, cognitive perception or work, you can go for the next query. That is one option you can have broadly. That's what we are usually happening. We are doing, right? That is one part. Second part, you can dig down. I mean, you can open a particular file or particular document, or you can open its properties, right? Like in the most other search systems, they are giving this link of document or maybe directly document, and along with it, they are providing some kind of is additional informations, right? So primarily, most of the systems are supplying these kind of information by assuming that user might be interested to dig it down, right? He's not going to review or open the second document or the third document or maybe the documents in the next page. He may be interested to open a particular document and read it. So right, so this is kind of focused research behavior. So it is not like you're simply exploring all the possible documents, right? So broadly, within a specific search, so after getting these 10 or 20 results in the very first page, our second phase of search has been started. So this part of search, when you are reviewing, you are opening or applying some kind of interest on particular result, we are saying this as a in search context, because user is inside the search process. Before this, user are not inside the search process. He was simply he has simply applied a simple keyword on the search system, and search system has generated some results. And now when user is reviewing, opening, and or maybe accessing the differently distributed or shown results, user is inside the search process. So you can say this is a in search context. So from user point of view, or from user context, now he's more or less part of the search process, because he is doing something onto the results which are retrieved by systems. So whatever behavior user is conducting or applying on the results is being captured, right? And this is the phase, this is the portion where you can utilize the user's behavior to improve your search. If you are a search system, if you are a search engine, you can utilize each and every behavior of user at this phase, right? And you can model these behaviors, user actions, to improve the next possible search, right? Next possible search, or maybe this search itself. So it is like you can say, as if you are a student of a neural network system, or maybe KNN systems, or any NN system, you can apply these behaviors or actions to improve this current search also, right? So there are various mechanisms. We will be opening up about these possible behaviors, because this is the maximum advancement happened in the last few years, right? So this in the second phase or second slot of the search, which we are referring as a in search context or in search phase. You can plan a lot of behaviors, a lot of mechanisms to capture the user's behavior and utilize it for to retrieve the better result, to retrieve the, you can say, the personalized search, actually personalized recommendation. After that, after getting these two phases, first phase is pro search, pre-search, then we have in search. There is a third phase which is physically not happening, which is very difficult to implement, but yeah, most of the systems are working towards this third phase. Third phase, we are assuming that it could be called as a pro search, means your search system can proactively anticipate that these results could be useful, could be relevant to the users, right? And to get the result, to retrieve the result for this third phase, third part of the search, you can have any mechanism. You can have any mechanism to derive few results which will be possibly useful, possibly relevant, possibly related to the user, right? So broadly, in the modern context, in the modern time, any search process could be of these three phases: pre-search, in-search, and pro-search. So if you maybe in the next 5, 6, or maybe 10 years, you will be having a lot of information visualization systems, right? And these information visualization systems will be working. They are purely based on this third phase or third part of search context, because they will be able to model users pre-search, pre-search, in-search, and they will be utilizing these two search contexts to probably extracting the keywords for the results for the third phase, right? So before actually user starts his search, he will be having some kind of results based on the past history, based on the past queries, based on the past results he has seen, right? So these are some kind of so students who are going to start their research work or dissertations, as far as the computer science student, for this information search, if you explore that, what could be the possible direction, possible search issues, there are various spaces, there are various problems, objectives available for these kind of search systems, right? So now, because we have in the previous lecture we have partially touched upon the search process, the next concept, or maybe next thing which I wanted to share with you is the two important factors, right? Which are like, what could be the possible search behaviors, because in the last class we have seen the search process. Now the next thing which is very important to understand, that what could be the search behaviors possible if we have this particular impression of search process. So let me share the document, and then we can have a brief discussion on this thing, right? So today we are going to discuss two important factors. First is search behavior, right? So the search process, impression of search process, we have created in the previous lecture. Now naturally, based on this search behavior, we will be identifying some more dimension of it, and based on these dimensions we will be identifying the possible search behaviors, right? So in the previous lecture we have actually covered the inside of search process, that's what broadly you can say. Then in this process, in the discussion, actually we have taken more or less two aspects. So you might recall these two aspects. First aspect is, for any search process or any search activity, two things are very important: how user is engaged with the search process. So we have broadly underline this aspect, that user is involved in the search process by his three different cognitive processes. First is remembering, then thinking, then visualizing, right? So we have three cognitive activity of his user for three different phases, three different contexts. Now along with this user cognitive activity, we have taken one other dimension which is called user knowledge state, right? So to conduct particular activity, or to have some kind of interaction with system, what is the knowledge state, what is the knowledge gain, what is the CW thing which user is having at a particular portion of search. So we have observed, to start a search, user used to recall his past experiences, maybe past knowledge, maybe existing or collected knowledge about the topic, or collected information about a particular search need. That is first thing. After getting some results from the system, user used to update his knowledge. That's the first thing he used to do. And based on this updated knowledge, updated CW, he used to apply the search again, and maybe he can continue for some iterations, or maybe he can terminate his current search, right? And probably at this stage, at some point of time, or maybe at some point of stage, he can vividly imagination. I mean, he could start imagining about the possible set of results. Right. That's the objective of search system also, that the search system or search engine should be capable enough to make user in a way that he can realize, or he can imagine the possible set of results, right? So we will be discussing about these dimensions. So this is the second dimension of the search process which we have taken. To conduct a search, user is going to refer these three aspects of CWs, right? So whenever we are actually planning to design a search system, this second dimension is very important. This second dimension, right, which is called knowledge state, right? Because ultimately, if you can recall, or if you can correlate, this user knowledge state, how much user is aware about the search, is the prime force which is driving the search process, right? We cannot do anything about user cognitive space, because it is something it is a lying in user's mind. So you cannot extract the knowledge. We don't have these kind of system nowadays, at least. Maybe future we will be having some kind of systems, because if you explore this project from the Facebook, which is called deep text. So that project is having this kind of capability that a system might be the software or might be any setting. Uh, so this Facebook system is able to, in the future, is able to extract the possible text, or maybe the system is typing some text on the behalf of user. So maybe in future we will be having this kind of software uh, through which we can no identify the possible cognitive state of user, and we can perform a task on the behalf of users. So that might be the future, but nowadays we don't have any system to perform any cognitive activity on the behalf of users. So we cannot do anything about it. But we can do something about this second dimension, which is called knowledge state, user knowledge state, right? So at least in the modern systems, we have a lot of possibility, a lot of capability, which are doing something about this second dimension, right? Second dimension means they are trying to, so these systems, they are trying to understand the user's knowledge state, current knowledge state. They are trying to update the user's current knowledge state, and they might be having some clue, some features to provide the help for the third knowledge state, which is imagination for the future results, right? So now most of the system, or most of the uh, search engines are primarily designed or maybe created by having some kind of emphasis on this second dimension, which is often referred as a dilemma of state, knowledge state, user's knowledge state. So this term is phrase. This phrase is planned to understand that in any information system, or maybe you can say in any search engine, there are two implicit factors which are uh, important, or maybe which are basically having some kind of emphasizing, right? So if you go for Google search system, it is primarily designed by keeping some focus or emphasis on the second aspect, right? Second aspect. So we have two parameters. So similarly, if you go for the Flipkart, they are having again the focus on the second part, second parameter. If you go for the Google Scholar system, again, it is a search system, search platform. So it is primarily designed to have some balance or some focus on the first aspect, first parameter. So any search system or any information system or any web search system is designed by emphasizing or by having more emphasis on one of the dimension. They cannot have the balance. They cannot have focus on both aspects, right? So whenever you are designing an information search system, web search system, or information retrieval system, or search engine, any kind of system who's trying to extract something, it will be focusing on one of the dimension, right? So the first dimension is called exploitation. So whenever you are designing a system for information search or searching for document, it is important to have emphasis on these one of the dimension. The first dimension or first parameter is called exploitation. So exploitation means your system. So suppose you are designing a search system and your focus is on exploitation aspect, exploitation of information aspect. It means your system will be able to present the internal information within a particular PDF, within a source, to the user. So our focus, so if you're designing a search system which is based on exploitation, your system should be extracting the information from an information source to the user, directly to the user, right? And your intention of searching the information will be in a way that we are trying to present most of the detail within a source to the user, right? So exploitation means your focus, your intention, your emphasis on the information details within a source should be like that. But if you're designing a system to which is both based on the exploration behavior, exploration parameter, your intention or your objective will be the identification of source, identification of links, identification of information object, instead of presenting the internal details, internal information within a source, right? So we have two behaviors, exploitation behavior and information exploration behavior. So most of the systems in the current world are designed by keeping at a time emphasizing on exploitation, and some are designed by keeping some emphasis on the exploration behavior. And if you take these two terms literally, or maybe in the larger view, most of the engineering solution means if you are designing a optimization based algorithm, you need to balance between these two, exploration and exploitation, right? So most of the engineering solutions are about a balance between these two factors. But in case of search systems, each search system is having some nature. So each search system is having nature of the search system, you can say, the broad term, and it means actually on which aspect the system will be based on, right? Typically, so you cannot have balanced approach. You need to have some kind of inclination toward exploitation or maybe exploration. So exploration means primarily you are indicating toward the possible set of sources, and exploitation aspect means you are exposing lot of details within each source, right? Within each source of the information. So like in case of Google search system, whenever user is typing a query, system is generating some set of uh, source, you can say the information source. Maybe in the very first page it is presenting 10 or 20 information sources, but along with these details it is presenting some additional information, right? So just to make sure that you are exposed to some internal details, right? That is one part. And along with it is basically presenting some kind of information hints to you, so that you can have the list of objects, list of information sources also, right? So primarily, if you see the internal of information search, so you can see a basic impression. Now you can see here Q0 is the very first query after imposing a simple query to the user, to the search system, actually information search system. You will be having some set of result at this point, right? At this point you might be having one or maybe more than one information sources, documents, or maybe links. After reading these documents, you might be having different query which is called Q1, right? So this is one simple interaction, one simple iteration actually, right? So after applying Q0, you will be having some documents, then you will be having next query Q1, which is the next query exactly, right? That is one simple iteration. If you feel that as a user, if you feel that okay, my results, the results which I have intended to achieve are not extracted, right? You might be applying the query Q2 after observing the results of Q1. Here you might be applying Q2. So Q2 query, second query, is basically happening because of T. So T is what? It is the thought. It is a change of CW, change of cognitive perception of the work. It is a change of knowledge state. So this basically happens at each point. So you can see we are going on a different, you can say, non-uniform, so-called non-linear path. This is how a particular search process has been conducted, right? So this particular thing is basically showing here the set of results, set of documents. So typically, if you see here, if your system is designed based on the exploitation system. So our focus will be, after applying Q0, our focus is to open a particular document, or maybe your system is exposing a lot of information to the user, right? But if your system is based on exploration, it will be simply providing the details of the information sources. Details means it could be a link, or it could be simple title of the work, the title of document. It will not be providing any kind of internal details or details which are available inside the document. It will not be providing any metadata, any kind of things, right? So that's what the primarily we have two things to focus. So whenever you are designing a search system, your focus should be either on exploitation or in exploration. But in some cases, in very exceptional cases, there are very few systems which are designed to balance between these two things, right? They're not having equal balance. You cannot have emphasis on both aspects, that my system is balancing 50% on exploitation, on 50% focus on exploration, because it will be having some kind of confused impression of information to the user, right? So it is important to have emphasis on one aspect, right? So when the different scientists has been observed, or different information scientists have analyzed that user or maybe human behavior also is happening in this way. Whenever he is conducting any kind of search in the real life also, he is sometimes intended to have some idea about the information. In some cases, he is having some intention to identify the sources. So they have come up with or identified two broad behaviors uh, uh, in the real world, which is happening in the real world, and they have proposed two frameworks, actually two metamorphic frameworks uh, for the information search, right? So if you explore the literature related to information search or maybe information science, you will have some kind of impression or imprints about these two frameworks. So frameworks are nothing but they are kind of principles, right? It's like in the case of science, we used to have some principles, some theorems. Similarly, for information science or maybe for data science also, whenever we are talking about search systems, we will be having these two frameworks, right? So first framework is referred as a berry picking framework. So you might have heard about this term berry picking. And second framework is purely based on foraging, right? So foraging is a behavior for food search. First one, berry picking, is a behavior of berry picking. So if you go into the farms, there are various individuals are working to pick the berries, right? So berries which are better. So right. So basically, if you want to design a system, you need to incline towards one of the behavior, and you need to basically, whenever you are selecting one behavior, exploitation or exploration, you are automatically selecting one of this framework. Like in the berry picking behavior or berry picking system or berry picking framework, you are inclined towards the exploitation part, right? That's why it is written that it is basically emphasizing the focused search behavior. Focused search behavior means your main intention is to exploit particular source, information source, and once you receive some part of information, some part of detail, then you are switching to the next source, next information source. So because this is how berry picking is happening, you go to the farms, there berries are planted, then you went to the particular bush where different set of berries are available, and you will be selecting some of the berries from a particular bush, right? So the very first thing naturally is to have a list of sources, and after that you are selecting one of the information source, one of the particular bush, then eventually you will be picking some berries from a particular bush. So this is kind of exploitation based or exploitation behavior. So your system, your information system is adapting berry picking framework, and if you are picking a particular berry picking behavior based system, you are automatically selecting or you are automatically facilitating the focused search behavior, right? So here, so whenever you're designing a system which is based on berry picking, you are automatically basically motivated by the different search needs. So once you explore particular information source, once you go through the details of details available in one particular information sources, you will be changing your needs after reading these internal details of within an information source. You will be motivated for next information source, next information details, right? So that is the motivation factor. If you are designing a system which is based on berry picking, the motivation factor for search, for continuing the search, will be the change of changing the information goal needs, right? Because if you are reading some details in particular information source, you will be naturally motivated to go to the next information source details, right? So these are the basic characteristics of a model if you're designing a system based on berry picking. Just contrast to this model, we have a different framework which is called, or which is primarily motivated by the browsing behavior. Browsing behavior means your intention is to identify the possible important food sources, important information sources, right? So whenever your system is based on foraging framework or maybe the exploration behavior, your intention is to identify, the very first intention is to identify all the possible relevant sources, right? That should be the first intention. Similarly, this is also happening in the different optimization algorithms. So if you are working in the optimization algorithm based solutions like genetic algorithms, ABC, ant colony on-canneling systems, and also there are various optimizations algorithms are available. So if you're working on these kind of algorithm solutions, they will be primarily based on this nature, foraging behaviors, right? Their intention is, the first intention is to identify the food sources. Then secondary behavior could be like, okay, let's read one particular behavior, one particular food source, one particular documents. That could be the secondary behavior, right? So in this case of foraging based behavior, our motivation, or maybe motivation for the search, will be role needs. How, what is the role of one particular source behavior, one particular source information source is having, right? So if one particular document, one particular food source is having sufficient food, your behavior, your search behavior will be changing, right? So these are the internals about particular two behaviors, two frameworks, because these two information or the frameworks are planned to support one of the behavior, right? So it is very important to have a clear idea that, okay, my search system or maybe any search system is based on one particular nature. So typically you might be having n number of search system in front of you in the internet, but broadly you can have some kind of classification or categorization, that this particular search system, like Google search, MSN search, Yahoo search, these search systems are having this emphasis. So by understanding the properties or nature of such system, you can clearly identify that this system is supporting or encouraging or emphasizing this behavior, right? So these are the some basic details about the you can say literature. This is how different individuals who are working in these domains called information science or information search, they are having this kind of reasons that in the world of information science or information search, we could be having these two frameworks, and within these frameworks we have to work, right? So suppose you wanted to design a recommender system, your focus will be on the foraging aspect. Your whole system design framework will be based on foraging behavior, because if the recommender system, it is very important to have a list of objects, list of product, list of information or data object, right? Source, you can say broadly. And if you're designing a information extraction or information processing or maybe information presentation system, or maybe in data science system for analysis, you need to have a berry picking based system there, because berry picking behavior framework is giving you or extracting you the lot of information within a source, right? So that is the broad, you can say, the classification, broad categorization of the system you can have based on these two foraging frameworks, right? So after this, in the last class or maybe in the last lecture, we have primarily pointed out that, sir, what would be the possible classification of behaviors, right? Because we have two frameworks, berry picking and foraging. So based on these two frameworks, we could have brought two emphasis to perform two parameters to be emphasized during the database design or system design. Before that, actually, we will be having some kind of classification of search behavior also. So if you see, if we could see this classification broadly, there also we have kept two dimensions, two parameters. In the one side, we are having the knowledge about search context, means he's having some idea about search needs. User is having some idea, some kind of information about his search needs. Second dimension, we are having users' knowledge about the possible results, possible search domains, right? So you can now correlate these two dimensions with the dimension which we have taken in the previous class, right? So there you can see user is having some familiarity about the initial search interest. He's aware about the initial knowledge state, that okay, for particular task, for particular you can say assignment, I have these keyword with me to start my search. That is one aspect. And second aspect could be the users awareness on the possible search results in the future, right? So now you can see how these two behaviors, how these two dimensions are affecting or maybe the reasons for different search behaviors, right? So so there are two because we have two parameters, and we have two parameters, means we could be having four combination of behaviors, four combination of these two parameters. And naturally within each parameter we could have two labels, right? Like for a user's awareness about his possible results, his possible impression about the possible information sources or possible information details could be of two dimensions, means he could be having some idea about the possible results, or he will be not having any idea about the results. So similarly for the second dimension, which is called search context knowledge, maybe search needs knowledge, he could be having two dimensions. So there are few search behaviors which are basically captured in this particular figure you can have. So if you focus on the very first quadrant, you can say very first block, where we are saying both aspect or both dimensions are known, means user is familiar about his immediate search need and possibly the possible set of results also. So the very first example, prime example of this behavior, this quadrant is this lookup search. So in the case of lookup search, user is having very specific idea about the query and very specific idea about the possible results also. So both dimensions are known to the user. Both dimensions are known to the user, right? So user is having very clear idea about the result as well as the possible keyword, as well as the possible search need, right? So all these kind of search behaviors can be kept in this dimension, where in this quadrant actually, where both aspects are known, right? So you can have some kind of search system. So if you are going to design a information search system, and if you observe that for this kind of information, user will be having some idea about needs, and user will be having some kind of idea about the search results. So you can design a basic information search system, right? A basic search system which is primarily based on the information exploitation based system, right? So for these kind of search behaviors where both dimensions are known, you should not go for the exploration based systems, because exploration based system will be emphasizing the information source. But in these cases where user is able to identify his result of his interest, you should be going for exploitation based information system. You should be exposing a lot of details within a source, within an information object to the user, right? So all these behaviors, like fact verification could be one behavior. Like sometimes we used to go into the systems, Google search systems, and verify what is the rate of exchange between rupees and dollar. So these kind of queries, these kind of searches are called fact verification. Lookup search we have taken. If you are going for searching for the phone numbers of the hotels in a city, then it could be a lookup search. Fact finding means it could be like, okay, what could be the different places in a city for visit or must visit places for the city, can be kind of a fact verifying. Simple search could be, okay, you are simply listing the news articles on the news about particular event. So these all kind of such behaviors are falling in the very first bracket, which is referred as a most basic form of information search. So the purpose of keeping this quadrant in a way, like it should be any system which is supporting these behaviors, these kind of search system behaviors should be designed by keeping the focus on exploitation part. Second dimension could be this known and unknowns. Known unknowns means the second quadrant. I hope you're able to see there. Behaviors are like evaluation, comparison, refinding, investigation, comprehension, analytical search, and transactional search. So in this quadrant, if you see, user is having some idea about the possible results, but he is not having any idea about the possible results, but he's having some idea about the initial query actually. So this is like to start a search, you are having some keyword with you, but you don't have any idea about the possible set of results. So here, so it is like refinding situations. You have some set of keywords to find a particular result, but you don't have initially any impression about the results. So all those behaviors are kept here. So in this, to support this kind of behavior also, you need to design a search system which is primarily based or focused on exploitation based nature, but partially you should provide some information hints to the user which are supporting him to identify the set of information source, right? So it is like you can have a emphasis on the exploitation feature up to 90% weightage on the exploitation, and 10% support or 10% hints for the exploration nature. So like in the Google search, if you see, it is providing for a particular query, it is providing set of results in the very first page, and the bottom it is providing some set of questions to you also. It is providing some kind of query hints to you also, right? So it is to basically have some kind of helps to the user so that they can perform some exploration. They can perform search for the different sources also. So you can have this kind of balance systems, but you cannot have 50-50, because user is having, for this quadrant at least behaviors, user is having some sort of knowledge about his initial search interest. He may not be having specific idea about the results, right? So basically, to support this thing, you need to have 90-10%, 90-10, and maybe 70-30, or maybe 75-25% weight balance between exploitation and exploration, but emphasis should be on the exploitation nature. If you go to the third quadrant, probably there we are saying unknown knowns. So these kind of behaviors like question answering, examination, known item search, review, inspection, specific search. So this third quadrant is primarily saying user is not having very specific idea about the initial query, but he may be having some familiarity on the possible rates. So that's why you can see here we have kept review. So in the different platforms like Flipkart and these kind of things, we used to write a review because we have a very specific idea about the product, that this product should be like this. Right, this particular feature should be like this in this particular part of product actually. So in this set of behaviors, user is having a very specific, very informed about his needs on a certain object or certain information source. But to start to reach this object, he's not having that much specific idea about these features, these information or details. So here you need to do one thing. You need to balance between exploitation and exploration by keeping higher or more weightage to the exploration part. And that's why we are saying that you are looking for some known item search, you are applying some kind of review, you are basically conducting some kind of examination, or maybe your search is of nature specific search. So all these recommender based systems are falling. So you can clearly see here most of the search behaviors in this quadrant are referring some kind of activity in the recommender system also. So like review, known item search, inspection, specific search, right? So for this quadrant, whenever you are designing a system, you should be focusing more on the exploration part, because you need to expose the information source, you need to expose a particular product, right? And along with it, you need to share some set of features to the user so that he can filter out these results. So that's why most of the recommended systems are designed by or maybe supporting some kind of facet search, right? Facet search means whatever property or feature a product is having, you can provide after providing a basic search, on all of the product, you can provide some sort of facets along with the product information. So you are showing some products, and along with it you are providing some kind of facet search so that user can review, user can apply some kind of specific search, he can perform some inspection or examination on the list of product. So you need to balance between exploitation and exploration, but most of the emphasis should be on the exploration part. Exploration means you are providing the list of product, list of information objects, information sources, and along with it you should be partially emphasizing on the exploitation part, right? So this facet search is to support this exploitation behavior, right? The last quadrant, which is considered as the most difficult quadrant, right? Here you can see we have kept 3-4 behaviors, like navigational search, explanatory search, discovery, browsing, and exploratory search. So these are the most extreme behaviors of information search. And to support this, you need to balance these two behaviors. That's why I have told you that we don't have we don't have any specific system to support these behaviors, because to support these behaviors, actually you need to balance between exploitation and exploration. So if you're designing a exploratory search system, you should be balancing 50-50. In the ratio of 50-50, you should be balancing the these exploitation and exploration search. And literally, if you go into the search system, into the internet, and if you try to find out what could be the best solution available, best search system available to balance or to support exploratory search, it is very rare and difficult to find one. Yes, in the very closed worlds, we are having various exploratory search systems, but in the literals, or maybe for generic search, for generic user search, we don't have any exploratory search system, or maybe we don't have any system for discovery based behavior. So yes, in the different research labs, or maybe in the different closed worlds, labs, research labs, or maybe with scientists, they are having their own discovery oriented systems for information browsing, system for exploratory search, system for explanatory search, navigational search. But in the public domain, we don't have any system available for supporting these behaviors. This is the most difficult quadrant, because both hints are open. User is not having any idea about the the starting keyword. You don't have any idea that which keyword should be which keyword will be helping him out, and which keyword will be directing his search to the result. And he is not having, in the more wild way you can say, he is not having any idea about the possible set of results for his query. So both ends are open, both ends are uncertain. So it is very difficult to conduct a search in this scenario, right? That's why we don't have, and that's why these systems are there. Any company is not designed or maybe working upon these kind of systems, right? Because it is the most wild space of information science. So this is very challenging to design a system to support these kind of behaviors, right? So so we have taken two broad frameworks to design the system, and we have considered two basic behaviors. And now, if you correlate these two framework and these two behaviors with this classification, so we can come up with these 4 quadrants. On each quadrant, we have placed different behaviors, and based on these behaviors and their presence in a different quadrant, you need to balance these two behaviors and frameworks, right? So from here now, because we have discussed most of the things which are planned for today's lecture, from here now you can correlate any search behavior, or maybe any search system, how the system is emphasizing, what should be the balance for it, right? So suppose a particular situation or scenario is given to you. Now I think you can identify that, okay, for this scenario, the search behavior is like this. So if I wanted to design a search system for this situation, I should be emphasizing on this parameter, right? So based on these discussion of today's lecture and maybe previous also, you can easily identify, or you can easily classify the nature of the search system, the nature of user's presence, user state of knowledge, and then you can plan that, okay, I will be designing a search system and I will be emphasizing on this aspect of the system, right? So I hope things are clear. And now, because we have covered most of the introductory part, when we have partially touched upon the conceptual part of a search process, search system. From the next lecture onwards, we will be opening up about the internals of basically you can say the information retrieval process, or information retrieval system, actually, right? Because information retrieval system or information search system is basically clubbing or plugging all these things, which we have taken about in the last and today's lecture also, right? So till now, okay, if you have anything to ask, you can raise, right? Okay, so I'm waiting for your question or query. If you have anything to ask, you can raise here.